friends, it's Natasha. In today's video, I'm going to show you Writing with Ease Workbook Level 2. This is from the Well-Trained Mind Press. Now, I have a video showing you the Workbook Level 1, as well as the hardback Writing with Ease book that covers levels 1 to 4. With that hardback book, you can kind of create your own program, but if you don't want to have to do all that legwork, you can buy these workbooks. But it says workbook, but it has all the teacher information in here as well. So this is typically used for second grade. However, I do find the Writing with Ease program a little difficult on the comprehension side. And so keep that in mind. But you can go look at level 1 and you can look at level 2. I don't have levels 3 and 4 to show you, but I do know some of the differences between level 2 and level 3. And so I will kind of address that. But let's jump right in. This is a 36-week program. And you are basically how this book works is the front half is the teacher guide and the back half is the student pages, and you can reproduce these for the students in your own home. What I did with level 1 is I took it to Office Max, had them cut it out, and I had them bind this half and then this half separately. So that I had my teacher book, she had her student book type of deal. Now in level 2, you are still reading their narrations you are still reading the passages to the student. In level 3, the student then reads it and writes down their own narrations. But in level 2, you read it out loud to your student, and then you write their student's narration. So we'll get more into that, but that is a huge difference between level 2 and level 3. We do have the reading selections over here, but it does not tell you the different focuses or the different things that you will be learning in this program. So we will try to go through those and see at least a handful of them so you can get an idea. But let me show you how this works on a weekly basis. So day 1 of the week has a narration exercise. That is where you're going to read this to the student. It tells you exactly what to do. There is literally no questioning with this program. Okay, after you're done reading, you ask the students these questions. Of course, it says instructor, that is your question, and then student, that's kind of the anticipated student response. After that, you're going to ask the student, can you tell me in 1 or 2 sentences what happened in this story? And it gives you some examples of what that might look like. And then you, the parent, write down the student's narration on the student page as he watches. And the as he watches part is so that they can pick up that correct capitalization and punctuation and all of that. Day 2 is then a copy work exercise. Again, we see a focus here. Okay. In level 1, it gave 2 different options for copy work, one shorter, one longer. In level 2, it just gives you one option. So you just have one option. Okay, and you're supposed to watch the child as they do the copy work to immediately correct them if they make an error. So that way their brain doesn't remember that error, basically. Day 3 is then dictation. So what dictation is basically you are telling your student out loud a sentence. In this case, here is the sentence in bold, and they will write it down. And they should be using correct capitalization and punctuation and all of that. And as it gets deeper, they'll be adding, more complicated punctuation, things like dialogue and things like that. And then day 4 is both narration and dictation. So on day 4, it starts similar to day 1, in which you're going to read the story to the student. Then you're going to ask them the questions. Then you're going to ask them for their narration. You're going to write down their narration. But then you're going to read their narration back to them and have them write it. Okay, so that's the dictation part of it. Or it says if the students writes well and easily, you can choose to dictate 2 sentences instead. Okay, so that is the flow of the weeks. Day 1, narration. Day 2, copy work. Day 3, dictation. Day 4, narration and dictation. All right. So let's go back and see some of these focuses. So we're going to review beginning capitals and ending punctuation and proper use of a and an. We're going to identify the central narrative thread in a story. We're going to identify central ideas and actions. We're going to learn action verbs and capitalization of the pronoun I. Identifying the central narrative thread in a passage. We'll see that one come up quite often. Identifying central ideas and actions. Linking verbs. Identifying central narrative thread in the passage. I'm not going to now repeat the same ones that I've already said, so I will say only the ones that are different. So commands and questions. Names of seasons. proper form for lines of poetry, commas in a series, still working on commas in a series, and still, of course, identifying the central narrative thread in a passage. That's still been going on, and the central theme. Identifying central details in a description. Summarizing the central narrative thread in a story, so not just identifying it, but also it's now summarizing it. More helping verbs. Contractions. Adjectives. Predicate adjectives. Identifying the central narrative thread in a poem. Interjections. Conjunctions. Identifying the central actions in a scene. Direct quotations. Again, I'm not repeating the same things that I've already talked about it covering. So a lot of this is repeating the same topics. Indirect and direct quotations. Identifying contrast in a description. Adverbs. I think I might have said adverbs already. Exclamation points. Similarities and contrast in a passage. Articles. Prepositions. Lines of poetry and prepositions. Synonyms. Colons and antonyms. Identifying the central elements in a plot. Don't think I said that one yet. Reviewing commas. And then the last week is an evaluation to basically make sure that they've actually mastered all these things that you've learned. And then the second part is the pages for the students. So mainly they're just these blank line pages. So if you have more than one student, you can copy these, but let's say you have more than one student and you use them, and then, you know, another child comes along in a couple years, you can simply use notebook paper. Just keep this, you know, keep this half and use notebook paper. And that's another reason that I had it cut and bound like that, because I knew, and I'm going to do the same thing with this one, but I knew I was going to be reusing it with my youngest, and so that's what I chose to do. But basically, they're just these pages like this. So as you can see, there's no reason why you can't just use notebook paper. So, I mean, these are cute, and it's got the little pictures and nice big lines, but really, and even though it has the copywork right here, the copywork is also in the book, okay? So it's right here, so you can write that on a, you know, notebook paper. So this just kind of makes it easier, but notebook paper is totally fine if you use it again with another student. So that is basically what it looks like. So kind of how I describe writing with ease is, yes, it's a writing program, but in my opinion, it's preparing students for writing through comprehension, through reading comprehension, so or oral comprehension. So it's as much of a comprehension program, in my opinion, as it is a writing program. And also, as you can see, there's grammar heavily tied in relation to writing. Now, there is a complete separate grammar program called First Language Lessons, And I do have a video of First Language Lessons 1 and 2. But so typically you would do First Language Lessons 2 along with Writing with Ease Level 2. But some people use this a year behind, which is actually what I have done. I'm using Level 2 with my to-be third grader. She used Level 1 in second grade, although she started it at the very end of first grade, and there was just so many lessons we didn't finish it in first grade because we started so late. So we finished it out in second grade. And so anyways, but also the author of the Well-Trained Mind, Susan Wise Bauer, says that Writing with Ease Level 4 is also kind of optional. And so she has a whole progression on her website. I will link down below. So my point is that Level 2 could be used second or third grade, really no problem. And I personally, this doesn't give them a lot of like practical writing work, like writing a letter or something like that, but that's something that they do cover a little bit in first language lessons, and of course you can add kind of that in, but this is basically developmentally appropriate to prepare them for kind of writing on their own. In Level 1, they really don't do any of their own writing. In Level 2, it's working them up to that because of that day 4 where they're doing their narration and dictation. So rather than having to think about what they're going to say and write it at the same time, they're saying it out loud and you're writing it, so they don't have to think of all of that at once. They can just say what they want to say, and then you're taking that and dictating it to them, and then they're writing their own words. And so that eventually, in the latter levels, leads them to writing on their own completely. Now, I just wanted to check the last narration and dictation. Yeah, so throughout the whole thing, I just wanted to make sure. I thought that was the case, but write the student's narration down, but do not allow him to watch. Choose 1 or 2 of the sentences from the narration and dictate the sentences back to the student. And then allow the student to compare his sentences with the original narration. So throughout the whole thing, it follows that same format. It does just get a little bit longer as far as like the dictation. See, here's a dictation towards the end at week 34. You see there's quotations and lots of commas and different things, versus at the beginning where it's just that basic sentence there with just a capital and a punctuation and no commas or anything like that, or quotations or any kind of complicated punctuation. So as you can see, it definitely does ramp up. But anyway, that's kind of my overview of Writing with Ease Level 2. If you have any questions, let me know down below. I will link the Level 1 video and the First Language Lessons video. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if this video was helpful, and don't forget to subscribe if you love all things homeschool.